Good morning, good afternoon, good whatever time of day it is. Thank you for tuning in to Conversations with Dr. Don. And I always ask my guests how you're feeling, and I want to get out right now that I'm nervous because my guests tonight are going to drive me nuts. They're two colleagues of mine, friends of mine for a long time, and they're community access television volunteers for a long, long time. And the best I can say about them is that they're eccentric. These are community access volunteers. And over here is Shaun Savage, old friend of mine for a long time. Incredible mind, and other things incredible about him that he'll get into as we talk. And Mike Birchet, another delightful, interesting, deucedly interesting human being with all sorts of talents and interests. You're going to have a good time watching me talk to these two guys. And I sure hope it's going to be okay because I don't know, at least one of them gets totally out of control now and then. Anyhow, let's follow the usual pattern here. The first half of the show is usually dedicated to who are you, a little bio segment so that you can learn more about these two guys personally and understand where they're coming from and why they have opinions and views that they will be talking about. And don't look at me that way, Shaun. I want you to stay under control, okay? You too, Mike. This is going to be a fun interview. Okay, let's start off with Mike. Who are you, Mike?
Michael Bruce Birchet is my full name.
Bruce, where'd you get that name?
Ask my dad. That's his middle name, too.
Okay. So when and where were you born, Mike?
I was born in Portland, Oregon, the old St. Vincent's Hospital, April 1st, 1961. This is one of the biggest hit figures in my life. My mom was hoping I'd be born a little earlier on March 31st, but no. Perfect timing on my part.
You were reluctant to come out. Yeah. So you're a native Oregonian.
Mm-hmm.
Are you weird? They say Oregonians are weird. Are you weird?
It depends on the context that we're talking about. As for charmingly eccentric, I like to think in that category. As for weird, as in I drive down your property values if I move in next to you, no, I don't think I'm that weird.
But you're more weird in other ways. We'll get to that later on. What's significant about your cultural heritage, if anything at all, or you're just plain Portland white bread?
Yeah, pretty much. The 60s kind of passed by my neighborhood. My parents didn't want to have anything to do with the cultural changes of the 60s. They're quite conservative. So I had to kind of figure out all that stuff out on my own.
And you got it figured out?
Well, somewhat. I remember this. I was going to say I remember the 60s, therefore I wasn't there, but I was kind of born too late to appreciate what the 60s were about.
Mm-hmm. So, as you know, if I ask a question that you don't want to answer, you can tell me you don't want to answer or get lost or something. How about a religious preference? Do you have one of those?
I was born and raised a Catholic, however...
I'm sorry, so was I. Go ahead, please.
But anyway, took 2.5 years at Jesuit high school to kind of convince me that my religious beliefs were superficial to begin with. I just was too young to know at the time. After I left Jesuit in the middle of my junior year, I sort of also let my religious beliefs rot and fall off.
Rot and fall off.
Yeah, so right now I identify as a secular humanist.
Ooh, two of them now.
Two of them. We're not going to get to you for a while, so shut up. Do you have a partner, a wife, a husband, a boyfriend, a girlfriend, or something?
I'm all my life single, still looking for that special lady. Mm-hmm. I've had not exactly the best luck there, but I keep looking.
Okay, girls, he's available. Just remember, keep that in mind. And his email address is up there, so email him and say, oh, here I am. Mike, come get me. Okay, your political persuasion, are you left, right, or center?
I try to keep towards the center. I do lean to the left, however, I try to balance that with, I've got friends who kind of lean to the right, but, I still consider them very good friends, and I learn quite a bit from them. I like to think my politics is more iconoclastic rather than liberal or conservative.
Wow, that word, man, you really laying it on us tonight. How about memberships in political, social, or civic organizations that the viewers might find interesting about you?
Well,
You're a humanist.
oh yeah, I'm a longtime member of the Humanists of Greater Portland. Dr. Don's one of the people I've known longest there.
Mm-hmm.
I'm also a longtime mentor for Big Brothers Big Sisters. Been going on like close to 10 years with them. Might be closer to 8. I can't remember, but they've been very happy with my service there.
Yeah, I'm sure they have.
Yeah, so. As for other organizations, I don't belong to any political organizations. My mind, I try to keep it balanced and everything. If I get into any political organization, even if, no matter how much I agree with it, I just don't want to fall into like a groupthink situation, because I think I might be a little susceptible to that at times.
Sure. Do you think of any persons from the past or alive today that you particularly admire or admired or look up to? Any names come to mind other than Shaun?
Well, no offense.
I'm in the past.
Let's see. There's Lausa, the author of the Tao Te Ching, the Book of Tao. That's as close as spiritualism as I ever get. It reaffirmed a lot of what I was thinking about philosophy, most likely more than spirituality, but that had a much bigger, more positive impact on my life than the Bible ever did. Then there's, in modern times, there's the musician Robert Wyatt. He's influenced, I play drums quite a bit, and he was an influence on my drumming. And unfortunately, at a party, he fell out of a third-story window, very drunk, and he got paralyzed from the waist down. But he still keeps making music as a keyboardist and as a singer, and he's like considered the patron saint of independent progressive rock over in England.
Would you say his name again?
Robert Wyatt.
Wyatt, okay, interesting. And what do you do for a living? How do you feed yourself? Do you work?
Yes, I'm just celebrated my 16th anniversary date at the U.S. Postal Service.
How the time flies. I remember when you first got that job. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, and there's times where I curse the day I got it. But there's a lot of good bennies to it, too. I mean, you hear all the horror stories nowadays about, the Postal Service is going under. I won't get too much of the soapbox on that because there's a lot of stuff I don't know that's behind the scenes. That's a whole show in itself. And you can probably find somebody more qualified, more informative to talk about than I could.
I haven't talked to, pardon me, I haven't mentioned in a long time the rich quality of your voice. I've always liked when you say something in our meetings, it's always out there and clear, and it's a rich baritone, a la Shaun or something with that French name, like Birchet. Yeah. Okay. So shall we move over to Shaun?
Yes.
You think it's safe?
No.
Good. Thanks for coming on, Shaun Savage, my dear friend. How are you feeling right now?
I could be better, but there's been some issues in the past and in the future. So I try not to think of it and just survive each day as it comes.
And so good. And Shaun Savage, what a name.
Sort of like Tom Terrific. When I was young, there was a cartoon called Tom Terrific with a funnel on his head, and he blew his funnel. And, his dog, what was his dog?
Manfred the Wonder Dog.
Yeah.
Memories.
So, what does that got to do with your name, Shaun Savage?
Tom Terrific, Shaun Savage. both
Oh, yeah,
single, you know, single and double, you know.
Yeah.
So it's.
Have you thought about changing your name?
Yes, I have.
Why?
I've got a new name, Sun Xing Shan.
Oh my God. Rick, help me out here, will you?
When I was in China,
Rick's in the control room.
when I was in China, I needed a Chinese name. So there's two people I admire from the Chinese culture. Sun Zhongshan, which was sort of the father of modern China before Mao, and Su Wukong, or the Monkey King. Which I'm sort of a little bit of both.
Yes, yes, in spades. But you're moving ahead too fast from it. Let's go back to the basics for the bio stuff for a few minutes. All right?
Okay.
And when and where were you born?
St. Louis, Missouri.
Missouri.
Yes.
Uh-huh.
And I am a show-me.
And when was that?
Many years ago.
It's starting already. 1931 or what?
A little after that.
And after that, all right. A religious preference?
I sort of have my own religion. Semi-agnostic, semi-Tao. You know, it's sort of a mixture of everything, with a very strong scientific slant. There is something beyond that I can understand, that people can understand, and I don't care.
Anything unique about your cultural heritage?
Not really. You know, upper white middle class.
Where did that name come from, Savage?
Came from England, I believe. Traced my genealogy back to about early 1700s, when the first Savage appeared in Kentucky. Haven't traced it back farther.
Are you a savage? Is there anything about your personality that people would say Shaun is a savage?
I'd like to keep that private.
Yeah. Did I ask you about your education, Mike? I'm sorry about that.
Oh, well, I did graduate from below high school in '79, and my only further formal education was an associate's degree in music, vocational music from Portland Community College. That was back in '87.
Shall you trust me to go back to Shaun now?
Go ahead.
Yeah. How about your education, Shaun?
Yes. I've been to West Point Prep School. I've been to University of Utah. Spent 3 years there getting my degree. Skied most of the time. You know, they finally, I had too many credit hours, and they said, "You got to graduate." And I said, "No, I don't want to." You know, I basically took 24 credit hours a semester, you know, 4 semesters a year type of thing.
Yeah.
Had a good time, and then got my graduate degree at Oregon State.
In what?
Electrical engineering, VLSI design, computer architecture with a emphasis on parallel computers.
Are you a geek?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm really a nerd. You know, computers are easy.
Really, yeah.
Really easy.
You scare me with your brain power and your thinking. Just, you're dangerous, yeah.
Yeah.
I asked you about your religion, and you danced around that, but I understand. Are you spiritual?
To some degree, yes.
What is spiritual? That's a trap for you.
Spiritual means that a belief in something greater than oneself that cannot be explained through science. And I basically stated that, yes, there is something greater that, or there is maybe not greater, but there is something that mankind cannot explain by science yet. So thus it becomes magic.
Spiritual.
Spiritual.
Yeah, and partner, wife, husband, boyfriend, mate, or what?
No, I am looking for a friend, partner, lover. I hope she comes soon, but other than that, still looking.
Okay, I want to warn you about this guy. He'll fascinate you, and he's fantastic. So, ladies, Shaun's available too. I got 2 bachelors here. Just, God, get him out of here. In your political persuasion.
Okay, there's left and right.
Mm-hmm.
I'm up.
That's it.
Okay.
Shut down the show.
I mainly I look at politics as what's good for the people as much as possible, and people should be responsible for themselves. So there's some conflict there. I believe that there's a relationship between the state and the people between itself. You see, I think the U.S. government is totally backwards. I think the neighbors should have the most influence over a person. You know, it starts out with family,
Mm-hmm.
neighbors,
Yes.
city,
Mm-hmm.
state,
Mm-hmm.
country. So the neighbors are more important than the country. You know, people 3,000 miles away who I've never met should have very little control over me.
What does that kind of model fit under? Capitalism, socialism, communism? Or what kind of ism would you characterize what you're talking about?
Peopleism?
Yeah. Is that it again? Rick, come out here and help us out here.
I don't know what type of ism it is.
You can join in any time and help me harass this character.
You know, I believe that the most efficient form of ism is a government communism, because then a lot of the control is organized. So the businesses are organized to work with each other rather than compete against each other. Now, that's not too good for the people, but it's very good for the country.
When people, you talk about communism, people, I think, tend to think of Joe Stalin and communism. Is that what you're talking about?
No, not at all. Not at all.
Well, then you better modify that term, communism, or what kind of communism? Why not socialism? Isn't that more appropriate?
Well, socialism means that the people own the entity. Communism is that the government owns the corporations. That's really what it means, is that the government owns the property. Now, I don't believe in that for the people, but I said it's efficient. You know, I didn't say it's the best. I said it's efficient. Because
what is the best then?
We haven't found it yet.
You're still looking?
Still looking, yeah. It's a cross between individual liberty, individual responsibility, and the social need of every individual. You know, and this is where I think that why the government's upside down is that the people around you should take care of you more than someone in Washington, D.C.
You're a dreamer.
I know.
Okay, how about memberships in political, social, or civic organizations? You belong to any of those things?
Right now, I am undeclared as a official political voter. Okay? I'm an old Eagle Scout, so I have been in Scouts, and I guess once you're an Eagle Scout, you're never, you're always an Eagle Scout.
Uh-huh.
But I'm not really a part of any official organization. Right now I'm working on a political campaign, so that could be considered a political organization.
You want to mention that campaign?
Okay, what I'm doing is it's the Oregon Cannabis Tax Act. And this is for the legalization of cannabis where marijuana is different than hemp, industrial hemp. So what I'm trying to do is get the legalization of industrial hemp for social, political, and environmental and economic reasons.
So that's cannabis too. Hemp is cannabis.
Yes, it's sort of like the difference between a golden retriever and a chihuahua. You know, they're both dogs, Canis familiar. You know, marijuana and hemp are both cannabis. But there's a difference between a golden retriever and a chihuahua, right?
And you don't smoke hemp.
Right, you don't smoke
You
hemp.
probably would.
No, no.
Have you ever tried smoking a chihuahua?
Rick.
But, you know, so when people try to lump hemp and marijuana together, they don't have the full picture of what it is. You know,
Yeah.
You can't really say it's the same.
Okay. Persons in the past or alive today that you looked up to, or admire. Anybody come to mind?
Yes, the two basically founders of the two most powerful countries in the world today, Thomas Jefferson and Sun Zhongshan, or Sun Tat-shan. One is the founder of China. The other one is sort of the founder of America. The political thinking, not really the president or anything, but the political thinker behind the country.
Yeah, so we're a few minutes away from taking a break. Then we're going to come back, and I'd like you to talk some more about your adventures in China and whatever else you want to talk about. But first, we'll need to talk about volunteering for community access television. I'd like us to cover that a little bit more because that's the title of our show.
Yes, and it's great.
And we want you to talk about your adventures in the U.S. Postal Service and any exciting stories that would titillate the viewers.
Oh, boy. Well, I myself try to keep my own job as mundane as possible so I don't go nuts. There's constant changes happening. Let's see, right now, University Station, where I'm at now, that's going to be shut down. And the three zones that are held by University Station, Zone 1, which is mine, that's going to go to the old Forest Park station up on Northwest 23rd and Xavier.
So we're talking about in Portland, because you know that this show is all over the world and all over the country too. University Station in downtown Portland.
Downtown Portland. Yes, usually.
Sure.
Okay, yeah, I'm trying to keep it local. And but anyway, there's going to be some major changes in how I do my route, which right now is a walkout route. I don't have a vehicle. I just have a little push cart. But they're going to assign me a vehicle because I'll be way too far away to make an all-walking route feasible.
So when we come back, you're going to talk about your book too.
Yes.
Let's give them the preview of that for a moment here.
Okay, it's a slow time. It's one of my many hobbies that I have that my day job helps pay for.
So I didn't mention Paul Wade, who was also in the control room, was an immense help in doing our shows. And of course, our master director, Mr. E. Ellery, he's giving me a thumbs down. So let's take a break, please, gentlemen. All right, we're back. You caught me with my mouth wide open. Thanks for staying tuned. Now, for you viewers who were channel shifting and found us by accident, or for whatever reason you didn't catch the opening of the show, Conversations with Dr. Don that you're watching is an ongoing series of one-hour standalone talk shows where I interview interesting people like most of you out there about who they are as unique, one-of-a-kind individuals, and about whatever it is we've decided to talk about tonight. Of course, we're talking about community TV, volunteering, and so much other stuff that my guests will have a good time talking to us about. You about China, and you about your music and your book. So let's resume, and shall we start with Mike?
Okay.
Lead me off. Tell us about your book or your music or whatever you want to start with, Mike.
Okay, well, since I have it out in front of me, I'll plug my book here. It's called Slow Time. It's basically a fantasy. I started writing in my spare time and just kept going with it until I finished it.
How long did it take you?
Oh, just about a year and a half, I think, from my first sentences all the way to getting it finalized for publication. It's available on lulu.com.
Lulu.com.
Lulu.com, yeah. And I'm trying to get it to where it'll also be available through Amazon.com and Barnes & Noble, etc., for Nook and Kindle.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, the plot, it's about this alien race called Bassians, and if you can find the one that says Bassian.
You got some JPEG
Yeah.
photos that we're going to show as you're talking about it,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, anyway, it's this benign race of extraterrestrials whose home planet got destroyed, and that's an example of one of them there. They're making periodic stops at this blue planet they discovered while they started terraforming their own new world. And they decided to go to Earth to get more flora and fauna samples to diversify their own environment, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And each time, well, they sort of fell into adopting a human that's been rejected by his or her society unfairly. So they could identify with these people. So they just keep coming back and forth between our worlds, and they find, they keep notes on how we're evolving as a species, and they're still debating to themselves if they really want to establish diplomatic relations with us eventually, once, if we could ever mature enough for them. 30 minutes. Well, anyway, the book kind of jumps from when they adopt a young female Homo antecessor called Clover. And if you show Clovers, I think. I'd rendered these on the DAZ 3D program. These are just kind of crude, okay, that's fine. Crude renderings of, what I'm talking about. But anyway, sorry, I lost my train of thought. It jumps ahead from when they adopt Clover and start raising her as her own up to modern times. And when they get back to Earth's orbit, they're shocked at how advanced our technology has grown. Mm-hmm. And they're doing their best to keep hidden because they're still unsure of how they would deal with us en masse.
Maybe they're pretty smart in that sense, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, they're also extremely confused by our media. They keep getting all these mixed messages, and it's kind of almost a coin toss whether to send down another landing party. Since they're a hands-on people, they decide to go ahead and send a landing party, and they find this an unfairly disgraced science professor named Charlie Schwitters, And if you can show the triple person, not him. Okay, that one there is, no, not that one, but that's, yeah. The previous one is what a homo antecessor actually looked like. Charlie Schwitter's would be the one on the left there, kind of a contrast between Clover and one of the Bassian figures. Well, he's been up against an entity called Fellowship America, which used very dirty politics to get him thrown out of his teaching position.
Is that sort of like the Republicans?
I try to not specify Republicans. I mean, but this is more like sort of like the Discovery Institute with Jerry Falwell's moral majority all wrapped up into one. Basically, Schwitter's is a victim of dirty politics.
So can you wrap this up in a couple of minutes?
I'm sorry.
No problem.
But anyway, they find him. And he agrees to help them out, and he turns out to be a great help to them. But they are eventually discovered, and he did not realize that one of the human guests that the aliens have brought back was the historical Jesus.
Oh my God, you're really getting far out here. So without giving away the end, can you give us a clue about what's going to happen toward the end that would invite people to want to read the book and have it unfold for them?
Well, so much of it's basically my thoughts about how people from different societies and times can actually get along together and do something, really be of benefit to each other. And this is in contrast to so much of the leadership in the modern world where, I was going to say, tying in with your version of a government, the aliens in this book, their system of government is their high council, and they have absolute power over everything that goes on in the society. However, all the high councilors are forced to wear recording devices that record every single period of their lives as long as they're high councilors. And people generally see all the stuff they have to deal with and respect their authority.
Okay.
And that drives our world governments nuts because they thrive in secrecy.
Yes.
All right, so let's move over to Shaun for a bit here. Shaun, will you talk about your open source and your geekiness and save your discussion of China for later on, okay? And then we'll come back to Mike and talk about the post office and back to you, okay?
Well, the thing is...
open source?
I wrote my first program in about 72 when I was in high school. Taught myself Fortran.
72?
Yeah.
That's a while ago.
Yeah. And so what happened is computers have always been easy for me. And they never let me do what I wanted to do. So I found Linux. I was in grad school. I needed to take care of the kids, and I needed to do work at school. And all the works used X Windows, which is a type of Unix display. So I needed something that ran X Windows. So I've used Linux, and I've been using it ever since 1993.
What is Linux?
Linux is an operating system that there's Windows, there's Macintosh, and then there's Linux. And it basically allows, it's free and open, and anyone can use it. Anyone can change it. It's like, it's free, as in the sense of free speech and free beer. You get something for it, they don't charge you for it, and you can change it like free speech. So it's...
Open source, so the source is open, meaning anybody
can do anything they want with it.
As compared to Macintosh or Windows, those are not open.
Right, because they want to keep it secret because they want to control the computers, while with Linux, the people control the computers rather than some corporation.
And that's been around for a while.
Almost 20 years.
And it's viable.
Yes, very easy to use. It's easier to use than the new Windows. It really is.
Well, you got to tell me some more about this when the show is over.
And it's also part of my political views of where the people, open source is open source is knowledge put into concrete form. And there's three ways to gain power in this world. There's force, there's money, and there's knowledge. So what open source does, it gives the average person the ability to take all this accumulated knowledge and utilize it for their own good.
Wonderful. Yeah. I didn't ask you earlier on about your work.
Well, right now, I'm, quote, unemployed, but I am working for the Cannabis Tax Act. I'm writing a political program to help them organize the volunteers and petition gathering. I created I've got the database from the state, and 2.5 million records that I search in fractions of seconds to find people if they've when they sign the signature, to validate each signature in the that is turned in.
You're making my head hurt.
And
are you available for a regular job?
Yes, I am. I'm a computer architect by trade. And what that really goes into is, here's a plug for me because I do need employment.
Yes.
I'm a computer architect. I know databasing, UI design, web applications, Linux kernel, security, networking. And so I know a lot of stuff, very broad knowledge. So I know architect. I'm also a fairly good talker. So I would also be good in sales. So my perfect job is to go out, meet the customer, talk to them, find out what they want, design the thing that they want, write up the spec, and then start getting it built.
Somebody get a hold of Shaun. He'll be really good for you, and he's fun to be with anyhow. So let's switch back to Mike for a bit and have some interesting stories about your music and post office or whatever else you want to tell us in about 5 or 10 minutes, because we want to save some time for Shaun to regale us with some of his tales about China.
Okay. Well, I'll try to concentrate on music because I know that's
Sure.
so much more than the inner workings of the Postal Service. I'm a longtime member of the local group Gradience, Gradience. As a matter of fact, we appeared on your show several
while
years ago. I
ago,
still have that on tape at home. Yes, there's some cringe-worthy moments because we've tightened up so much over the years.
And you've got different instruments now, huh?
Well, yeah, we still have the same basic lineup. However, we've written more tunes since we were on your show, and also we are recording our debut CD. Yep. Yeah, I think we'll be.
When will it be available?
I'm not quite sure. We got to do a final mix on it. I'm hoping by the end of this summer.
Okay.
And how it's going to be distributed, I don't know. I'll have to ask the other band members about that. But yeah, I've been playing drums and singing for Gradience since I helped found the group. And we still have our electric violin player who doubles on lead guitar. And let's see, what else can I tell you there? We haven't been gigging as much lately. So much of it's just, scheduling conflicts and whatnot.
What are most of your gigs about? Are you play at weddings or funerals or
no.
like dances or what?
Well, our last gig was last year at the Skidmore Fountain Market, which is right
Portland?
across from the Saturday Market. And it was stressful, but very well worth doing. They make you do a whole weekend as the main act.
The audience appreciate you?
Oh yeah, yeah. People really dug us. Well, considering we only do a few cover tunes, most of our material is original.
So, do you think Shaun's stories about China will be as interesting as your stories about your gradients?
I think so. Probably apples and oranges.
Give us some apples, Shaun.
Well, my concept of China is I look at China not, it has a wonderful long culture, and there are many positive and negative things about it. But when I look at it more as a culture of people and how they relate to each other and the rest of the world. So most of my thinking when I look at it is looking at the people and the political nature of the people.
How long were you there?
I was there for about 2.5 years.
How long have you been back in this country?
About 6 months.
2.5 years.
And I learned to speak Chinese, so I can speak Mandarin. I am not good. 我发音和法语不好，对不起。
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, if you do, you'll clean it up too, won't
Yeah.
you? I don't know what you're talking about.
So, and over there, I saw a movie called Bodyguards and Assassins. And it was about the founder of China in the 1911 revolution, organizing it, Sun Zhongshan. And that's when I started reading about him and trying to understand what he does. And he basically believed in democracy. He believed in a socialist type of democracy where people work together and that there was a contract between the nation and the people. And which then I combined that with Thomas Jefferson, and I thought, wow, that's a really interesting philosophy. Since then, the communists took over, and there have been many things that have been said in America about the Chinese Communist Party. Even today, they're not too politically astute in the world political arena. They have lots of money, but they do a lot of things that people just look at and say, why?
People being people, the rest of the world?
Rest of the
world,
yeah. The leaders and things like that. But they really have helped China grow. Every single city in China has a different dialect. And the farther apart they are, the farther the dialects are, so they can't even understand each other.
Really?
So what the Communist Party has done is they've basically created one language for China, which is a huge improvement over what it was. That's one reason why the China / the Chinese hasn't kicked the Western butt early in the culture, is because most of them couldn't speak with each other. And it's because they write in characters. They don't write in letters. And this character, you can say it any way you want. So there was really no single way to say what this word means, the pronunciation. It's the same meaning, but it sounds different.
Do you see in the reasonable future that most of them will be talking the same language and having
They
a
are
common
now. They are
They
now.
are now.
Except for the very older, if they're over 40, they still speak the local language, and they still know the local language, since the local language is spoken in their house. But they speak all Putonghua, or Mandarin. And after living over there, I can even tell the difference between where they live in China by how their dialect.
That dangerous brain of yours. I love it.
So it's interesting like that. And that's one of the things they've done, which is very good for China. And over the last 20 years, China has made great strides in the world economy.
Yes.
But the problem that they have is corruption. Because the organization of the government and business is very closed and not transparent, that made corruption very easy.
Is that rather similar to what goes on in our country today?
Yes, and in fact, that's an interesting point you make, Dr. Don, is I believe there's really only one way to maintain stability for masses of people. And America's moving more to a police state and a nanny state and, you know, a no privacy state. And China is moving more to a democracy.
Really?
So I expect in the future, you know, it's where the large corporations and the government get together to try to compete globally. And so the people at the top make a lot of money because they're competing globally, but the people underneath don't get much.
In both countries?
In both countries.
How long before this situation occurs? 5, 10, 20 years from now?
Well, we're heading pretty fast toward the police state. So it all depends on how fast China moves toward democracy. And in fact, every leader of China wants to present something new and novel so they can remember him. And the Hu Jintao, the leader of China, is basically there's a big conflict in the Communist Party right now as we speak. And there's rumors that democracy may be brought to China within the next 5 years.
5 years.
So within 5 years, America and China will be the same, where the big media puts out the party, you know, the corporate line. The government plays to the big corporations, and the people, the middle class disappear.
My gosh, so where is a third alternative for the governance of human beings, or societies, or cultures?
Well, that's where I come back to the concept of localization and much less power farther out. Unions, I believe, are the only thing that can save America and China, because that's when the people create an economic interest in their own lives. You know, a political interest is pretty, as we have found out with the latest elections, is pretty worthless. It's the economic interest, it's the dollar that really makes the world go round in today. So what we need to do is the people need to get together and form economic entities, like co-ops for buying food. You know, this type of economic structure needs, you know, political structures are sort of out and they don't have much power anymore. Only economic structures and, you know, grassroots organizations can really make a change.
Let's do some magical thinking here.
Yeah.
President Shaun,
Yes.
with the existing Congress that we have now, the existing Supreme Court, what would you do to have things move in the direction that are beneficial for the general populace, for the ordinary citizen? What would you do, Shaun? President Shaun?
Give up my hands and say, what the heck? No, that's a very interesting idea. I haven't really thought about it that much, but first of all, I would increase privacy, increase transparency of government, and have the people, like a simple thing, have the people on their taxes vote where their money goes. So if they don't want to go to abortion, none of their money goes to abortion. if they don't want to pay for the military, none of their money goes for the military. So then what happens? But they still have to pay taxes. It's just they get to pick where their money goes. And so now portions of the government are now competing for your dollars.
To be fair, President Mike Birchet, you are now in charge of our country and our system with the existing Congress and Supreme Court. Where would you have us go and how would you have us get there in a few words?
Oh, good questions. I would, oh boy. You can tell I never run for president.
How about corporate personhood?
Okay, yeah, I'd definitely end that. I'd probably tell the Roberts Court, you want to see me in my office, please? And give them kind of a, you know, make them reaffirm that their allegiance is to the Constitution.
And to the people.
And
the
the people.
sovereign.
Yeah.
The sovereign.
Exactly.
Is a conflict between China and the U.S. inevitable?
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
Basically what's going to happen in a few years, gas and oil prices will go up. China will need it. America will need it. There's a lot in the South Pacific. China says it's all South Pacific. All the other countries in the South Pacific, South China Sea, basically says it's ours. America will side with the smaller countries there against China, and that's where you'll see it.
Is China going to use drones to the extent that the U.S. empire is using them to control what's going on in the world?
If the concept here is that militarily, the drones don't make sense when two large powers are fighting. The drones are only used for intelligence gathering and in very rough areas that long time needs to be a single aircraft, undetectable aircraft needs to be in the area for a long time. So because those two military requirements make the drone feasible. So when they have a need for that type of military involvement, yes, they will use drones.
We're going to have to stop now because they're going to yell at me, but say a few words, about 20 or 30 seconds or so, to the viewers about any message you have for them. Yeah.
Oh, just, this is my book called Slow Time, available through lulu.com. And there's my personal email address if you have any other questions about it. And don't know how much else to say. Well, also my band Gradients, which I don't have any prepared material for, our debut CD will be out fairly soon.
And Shaun, what do you got to say to the viewers other than I'm available, hire me?
Yeah, I'm available. I'm available to the women and the jobs. Also, on I-9, legalize hemp and cannabis.
Yes. Okay, so it's time for us to close, and they're going to yell at me again. I'd like to get a few public service announcements up on the board here because they're pretty important to me. Public service announcements. What's our first one? To get the Dr. Don local broadcast schedule, go to www.donbaham.com, my website, and click on present day activities. Next one, please. Next PSA coming up on the screen any moment now. I'm counting till 10. To get the Dr. Don shows broadcast by other stations around the country, ask your local public access station to go to www.pegmedia.org, and they can get the programs and broadcast them locally in their immediate area. Next, we have to learn how to end corporate personhood. We've got to end corporate personhood to save this wonderful experiment called America. Go to www.movetoamend.org. It's so critically important, probably. And probably the last, what do we have next here now? Oh, I got to tell you, thanks for watching. And remember KFC. KFC, not Kentucky Fried Chicken. Dr. Don's KFC. kind, friendly, and charitable. Be kind, be friendly, and be charitable. To you too. And you. And you. And even in the control room, and Rick, and Paul, and Mr. E. Thanks again for watching.